That doesn't matter. The truth is, you can't control what others think about you, and you certainly can't change their feelings, prejudices, or preconceptions just with an explanation. I know a man, someone with plenty of life experience, who has tried everything to get his wife and colleagues to truly understand him. He's not the type to seek attention, nor does he go out of his way to annoy anyone. But every time there was a misunderstanding, every time he was misjudged, he found himself stuck trying to get everyone to see things his way. He'd spend hours, sometimes days, thinking through and planning every explanation. What he longed for was simple, for someone to nod, to look at him and say, "I understand, I believe you." But you know what? That rarely happened. People think what they want to think. His wife still saw him as inattentive. His colleagues still saw him as uncooperative. And every time he felt more disappointed, the harder he tried, the more he got pulled into the exhausting cycle of expectations beyond his control. Then one day he finally sat down and asked himself, why do I need them to understand so much? What makes me so anxious that I have to seek agreement at all costs? That's a big question that many people never dare to answer for themselves. But the truth is clear. The desire to be understood is really just a way of giving others the power to determine your value. You are ruled by their judgments, putting yourself in a weak position, always having to explain, always having to adjust yourself to others' standards. And in those moments, you lose control over your emotions and your life. Look back on how many times you sent lengthy texts, wrote explanatory emails, or tried to lay out your motives and reasons just to get someone to change their mind. And how many times did you feel satisfied afterward, or did you just feel more empty, hurt, and lost? The Stoic does not seek understanding from the outside because he knows the only thing he can control is himself, his actions, his attitude, his chosen responses. You don't have to explain to anyone except yourself. That is true self-mastery. It is that self-mastery and composure that form the foundation for lasting stability. When you stop expecting to be understood, you start focusing back on yourself. You examine whether your actions are right, whether your attitude is upright, whether your emotions are in balance. And if you're happy with that, if you know you're doing what you should, then all the gossip and misunderstandings fade away like the wind outside the window. No one says giving up the desire to be understood is easy. On the contrary, it's a process of training. But every time you resist the urge to explain, every time you choose to keep calm instead of chasing agreement, you'll feel your true freedom and strength grow. You're no longer a victim of judgment. You're no longer led by others' emotions. You are the master of your own life every single moment. I still remember the last time that man was misunderstood at work when a new boss thought he wasn't proactive enough on a major project. This time he didn't write a long explanatory email and didn't go around telling colleagues how hard he tried. He simply looked at his results and continued working with calm composure. When asked, he simply said, "I believe in what I've done. Time will tell." Simple, decisive, unemotional, just like a Stoic. Surprisingly, just a few weeks later, the project results spoke for themselves. The boss gradually realized the issue wasn't his lack of initiative, but something else. But more importantly, he himself felt the peace inside. No longer swayed by gossip, no longer craving for anyone to get him right, he had shifted from a passive, vulnerable state to true self-mastery. And it showed in the way he walked, spoke, and worked every day. If you're tired of explaining, tired of pleasing everyone, just pause for a moment. Ask yourself what truly matters to you, others' approval or your own inner freedom. Every time you choose to control yourself instead of seeking understanding, you're building the strongest armor there is, because you can't change how others think. But you can always master how you live. And when you live like that, you become truly steadfast, no matter what the world out there thinks. 5. Let others defend you. Let others defend you. When you stop seeking understanding, when you let go of your craving for approval from everyone, A new door opens in your thinking and in the way you live. That's when you start to realize you are not alone in this world. The power of self-control and composure not only builds armor for yourself, but also awakens empathy and integrity in those around you. When you control yourself, when you choose silence in the face of attack, you give society, those who are observing, the right to judge the situation for themselves. And the strange thing is, in many cases, they will stand up to defend you without you. 3. Flip the frame with calmness. Silence and composure are not just a shield protecting you from emotional attacks, they are also the stuff that lets you flip the frame. Many people still think silence is about enduring, about submission, about stepping out of the game. But if you truly understand its nature, you'll see that silence is actually the first step to regaining control of the conversation, to turning the situation around without much effort. I used to believe that I had to speak everything clearly, to clarify things thoroughly, to maintain my position. But then there were times when every explanation just made me more exhausted and sometimes even made things worse. That's the familiar trap. The more you react, the more you get drawn into someone else's stage where every action and word of yours is scrutinized, even distorted. You think you're defending yourself, but in reality, you're just a supporting actor in a play directed by someone else. Once I was openly criticized by a colleague right in front of my boss and the whole team. He kept talking about my shortcomings in a project, raising his voice as if trying to push me into a corner. The whole room turned toward me, waiting for a reaction. I felt the pressure clearly, every instinct in me urging a counterattack, to defend myself, to regain the initiative. But instead of explaining, I simply looked at him, nodded slightly, and calmly replied, "If that's your perception, I acknowledge it." Then I smiled. That was all I did. In that moment, I saw the confusion in his eyes. He seemed to expect me to get angry, to argue back, or at least show some irritation. But when he didn't get that, he started to fumble, lost his train of thought, and eventually withdrew. No one in the room criticized me. Instead, a few people turned to look at me with more respect in their eyes. I maintained my image, not because I argued well, but because I didn't let other people's emotions control me. Flipping the frame isn't about hitting back. It's about pulling your opponent out of their comfort zone. When you stay calm in the face of attack, you hand the stage back to the other person, making them act out their own play. The more they try to make you lose control and fail, the more they reveal their own weakness and lack of composure. That's how you hold your ground without posturing or having to prove anything. Some might ask, but how do you stay calm when being attacked? The answer is practice and making an active choice. You can start with neutral responses. "That's not my perspective." Or simply smile, nod, and get back to your work. Don't let your emotions carry you away. Don't let others pull you down to their level of anger or insecurity. Philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one. You don't have to be the loudest, you just have to be the most steadfast." When you keep your composure, you completely control your image, and more importantly, you remain the master of your own life. You may not believe it yet, but truly calmness is the one thing that forces others to reconsider. Confidence does not come from words, but from how you stand firm under pressure. That calm, proactive attitude is what earns you respect, inspires others to learn from you, and makes it much harder for anyone to attack you again. Of course, composure doesn't come overnight. It's the result of practice, of knowing yourself, of knowing your true value. But once you've experienced that feeling of staying in control amidst the eye of the storm, you'll never want to go back to your old reactive ways. You know that even a little confusion, a little lack of self-control is enough to lose your position, to lose the respect of others. All of us make mistakes, have lost our temper, or argued to protect our ego at some point. But it is those experiences that make you realize true strength does not lie in winning an argument, but in keeping your composure in any situation. That's when you truly flip the frame. You don't need to speak out, you just need to stand firm. Give yourself a chance to experience the power of composure. It's not just how you protect yourself, it's how you grow, how you become a man who cannot be shaken. Calmness doesn't just protect you from the storms, it makes you a lighthouse for others. A model of self-control and inner strength. Want to flip the frame? Start with composure. When you master your emotions, you master every game. 4. Focus on self-control. Focus on self-control. Once you understand the power of composure, once you really feel that moment when you're no longer dragged into meaningless arguments, you'll realize something even bigger. The more you want to be understood by others, the more you lose your own freedom. It's an uncomfortable truth, especially in a world where everyone wants to speak up, wants to be heard, wants to be empathized with, wants to be understood. But for the Stoic,